I never seen it. I wouldn't.
Or, the summer residents are still flying out, but the transit traffic is way off.
What's he doing? Jim, how's Steve doing?
Evening.
Hi, sweetie.
Relaxing.
What else doing? Did you go see him?
I heard that.
Oh, yeah. They told him to up the dose.
Not an easy recovery.
Well, you had that show. And that.
Pardon?
How long did that take you for your show?
It was too long ago, I think.
You didn't know.
I had a bunch of rocks fall. I think it's really bad.
It's pretty.
I had a bunch of rocks fall. I think it's really bad.
Pretty. Not like posterity the best. I used to know everybody on the island. Not anymore. Just sign in sheet, folks.
Okay.
Sign in sheet, folks.
Okay.
That before.
Yeah, Georgine's not here to set us straight this time.
There's something swell.
Sounds like a designer drink.
Yes, yes, I've been told that.
But we down on permits.
So I'm not.
That's the permit system. Yes. Johnson. Hey, Polly.
Well,
Okay, I've got 4:30, Max. Are we good to go technically? Thanks for coming. Town of LaPointe Regular Planning and Zoning, Town Plan Commission, 4:30, July 2nd, 2025. Call to order, roll call.
David Dalen?
Charles Brummer.
Jim Peters.
Paul Wilharm. Public comment? Anybody? Steve,
Yes,
public comment?
yes, I would like to thank Max and Rich for coming out to visit the studio and taking a look at what I have going on so that they can have firsthand knowledge of what I'm doing.
Thank you, Steve. Approval of previous minutes, TPC special meeting, 6/11/2025. Anybody see anything? Jim?
Is the time on that right? Wasn't that meeting after a public hearing? So I don't, correct? Instead of being 4:33, was that proper time? But we had our public hearing meeting first
We had the public meeting first.
at 5 o'clock, so how did that start at 4:33?
I've got 6/11/2025. I don't have a time.
I was just saying on the draft minutes, it says 4:30,
Oh, I think we, let's see here.
unless I missed something.
I think we,
This was the. Yeah, that should be 5:30. We're starting at 5. The
Public
hearing starting at 5. This should be
5:30.
I'll make it.
okay,
Same thing with the adjournment at the end.
It's an hour.
there's one mistake. Good catch.
Probably. But it's strange to me, on the bottom of that page, it says another issue is whether any conditions imposed run with the land. I just put go with the land. It run.
Run with the land is a technical, is a legal term. Yeah. Right.
The lawyer step on us again.
It's to differentiate between one. Their own person. When that was the owner, and when that person is not the owner, then it's gone.
Got
I
it.
think that was Charlie brought that up.
Thanks, man.
Anything else?
No.
Have I got a motion to put these on file?
I move to approve the TPC special meeting minutes of 6/11/2025 as corrected.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3D TPC public hearing, 6/11/2025. I'd like to thank Max for this very detailed minutes that were compiled.
Yeah. Hey.
I don't see anything. Anybody else? Anyone with a motion to place these on file?
I'll move to place the TBC public hearing minutes of 6/11/2025 on file as submitted.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Zoning administrators report, written and verbal report.
Just a couple things that, to know. Zoning administrator start on Monday, June 30th. Still here on Wednesday, so I say. Yeah, the other thing, just about the, I was struck by the difference between year to date last year versus year to date this year. I didn't give the number. You can see the town. And the general, the building permits were $2,761 last year, it was $12,807. These are dollars. It's pretty shocking, the difference in the dollar value that the permits alone. I mean, there were a few other things, the lines below are the different revenue streams that are on permits. Certified survey maps, conditional use permits, map changes, but the building permits really dropped so far this year. It's really startling. That's all I have.
Well, it very well could be the start of a economic slowdown. You never know.
did you get the rental permits in from Mattich and from the inn?
No, I mean, so that, we're in the process of this change. Zoning administrator used to be handling that. That's why Ed had this. But it's been moved over to Katie Abbott as treasurer. And Katie, I didn't catch her today before I could get the data for
And
that.
that might make.
So I think we will, because you guys want to know that stuff, we will incorporate that data. We'll pull that in from Katie, but I just didn't get it today.
Thank you.
I had an exchange with Katie a couple of weeks ago about that she was going to scan them and put them in the PDF so they can be distributed if
Sure,
anybody wants.
yeah.
So I'm not sure where she was, and again, I didn't catch her today, but yeah, keen on seeing them.
Moving on, old business, discuss meets LUP modification.
Rich went out there today, but I don't know how we want to, Rich has some, he can verify some
Setbacks.
information and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, so thanks to Bob and Nancy for, meeting with me today. I drove out and we spent quite a bit of time together and we walked the site, and took some measurements. They've been very thoughtful and detailed in laying out, the property lines, and the stakes for the garage and for the house, cabin, and for the deck. And with the variance, they meet or exceed all of the setbacks. So they came in and met with Max and I yesterday. If you'll recall, back on November 6th, we had a public hearing and there were no comments received. Public hearing. There's no depicted wetlands in the immediate area. I included in today's package their application and the site map, as well as some statistics where we measured the critical corners. And they all exceeded the variance in setback. For example, the northwest corner of the garage to the west boundary was planned at 25. We measured it at 25 and a half. And I've listed those on the last page. But like I said, they all exceed those setbacks were. They've put a lot of thoughtful effort into citing those facilities and staying within the modified, modified setbacks.
The only comment is they're asking for approval for the dwelling, the deck, the garage, but they're not asking the TBC to approve the gazebo. Just so because of the issue he has setback from water. So that is not what they're
Correct.
asking.
Correct. But then you just need a signature and a date by the owner on here.
Yes,
So, but you got the fee already paid.
yes, we've got the checks. And like I said, I mean, all the stakes are in the ground for the corners and we measured all of them critical to, the way the lot is situated is that they're building the house or proposing to build the house 25 feet from the west line. Now, the east line, if the house is 25 feet wide, the east line is almost the normal setback. It's 48 feet. I think the normal setback in there is 50. So it's just on that west side, but there's very good reason for, why they've, selected the layout for the cabin, for the garage, and for the deck. I honestly think they did as best as possible with the layout.
Thanks, Rich.
Make a motion to approve the land use permit for the Meats property, contingent upon it being signed.
Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Review and approve land use applications, 1197 Big Bay Road, M. Smith, 1480 Middle Road, M. North, 613 Bryan's Road, C. Douglas, 2507 Spirit Lane, A. Beltler.
The 613 Bryant Road in Douglas, that is already approved. You guys already approved that. I didn't know that had been approved. That's been approved. Maybe you want to speak to the Butler situation, Kevin Butler.
Yes, yeah. So Max and I took a field trip yesterday out to Kevin's property as well, and walked the area where we're going to be proposing to build. He has a site plan. Nothing's marked yet. The application isn't complete. It's not really ripe for discussion at this point. But we did get a great view of where he's planning, and we talked about setbacks. The next step is I've gone through the file, and I'm going to be reaching out to him, if not tomorrow, early next week, with a detailed list of here's what you need to submit for us to move forward on this.
So really, the only two that we need to approve here is Bay Hill Cottage and Middle Road.
So, yeah, so the middle road, let's start there. The address actually should be 1468, not 1480. The same person owns both of those. This is another one in your package today. You'll find, I've taken a more detailed approach to these TPC review packages. I'm open to suggestions, thoughts. I'm trying to make everyone's review a little bit easier. Having a picture, so you're seeing screenshots. I think when I describe something, I want it to be understanding it the same way that it actually is. So this is one where requesting to have a pole barn building constructed. The application's been filled out completely and accurately. It was signed. We have a check for that. The site is staked and measured, and as well as an Ashland County permit. It does not need a sanitary permit because the pole barn is not having any plumbing. It is not a non-conforming lot. I could find no record of that. You'll notice I skipped one on there, and it was the wetland and DNR permit. So if you there's a page that's actually in color. You can actually see the pole barn highlighted it. So That's where it's located. Max and I were both out there this morning. It's outside of the 1,000-foot criteria, to the shoreline. And then you'll see a couple of pictures on the next page, one of them that documents that. I measured from the closest property corner to the shoreline, and it was 1,035 feet. So close, but outside. But the last exhibit that's on here, well, on that page, is a depiction of the forested and upland wetlands. And this site is very close to the forested wetland site. It's so hard to tell on here just due to scale, but I think coordination with the DNR is a good idea. And then the very last page, as I measure it, you're gonna see a lot of measuring from me, is I went into an aerial photo and where the existing road is and more or less where the site is for that pole barn. And from the road to the wetlands is about 25 feet. 25.74 feet. So that's one of those that I'm like, it's pretty close. I can't judge myself 100% accuracy that that's missing the wetland.
You didn't have any red flags on your site visits?
No. There was a marker there, but then I came back and I looked in Google Earth, and then I also looked at the Ashland County website just to see, we've got the setbacks from Max kind of walked through and down and out to the street and walked through 40 trees.
Yeah, whenever we had a question years ago, we'd always confer with John Spangberg, who was a wetland expert and analyst with Wisconsin DNR. I don't know who fills his role.
Okay.
He's since retired. I think unfortunately he's passed away, but he was always pretty knowledgeable about wetland indicators.
Yeah, so I dealt with
If there's
that
ever a
some,
question.
I dealt with some of that in my past life, and to me, it didn't jump out that it was an issue, but the wetlands are close. And I just want to be careful for the town that I'm not approving something hasn't been vetted.
Thanks, Rick.
I'm comfortable with this. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the land use permit 1468 Middle Road.
Okay.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to say that, Rich, when you highlight and put red on this, it really jumps out and makes it a lot easier for us to
Yeah.
understand
Great, awesome.
what is or isn't.
That sounds good.
So that's very helpful.
I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm looking for any sort of feedback on, as we develop these, I want to give you something that's usable.
Very comfortable.
I think it's like,
Yeah, no, I think it way exceeds industry standards.
yeah,
Okay, thanks.
yep, that's very good.
Appreciate that. And we do have one more.
Yep.
And this was for a deck out on Bay Hill Cottage Road. And this is one where we have the application now. My understanding is that there was an attempt to reach out to us more than once. I don't know how many times. And he did not get a reply from the town. And he reached out to Max a couple weeks ago, maybe, and just basically said, I've got a crew and I need to build it, and I'm going to build it. So we went out there today. We wanted to, investigate it and take a closer look at it. And it is a small deck. Personally, when I think of a deck, I think of like this large structure that's got, this is literally, I don't know, 6 inches off the ground, maybe.
It's more of an apron.
Yeah. It's a very short deck, like one that it's not high enough that it actually needs railings. And I know it's hard to see on here, and I'm gonna start drawing on these so you can actually see them. But this building here, this structure here, the deck is literally in front of this, and it's a tiny deck.
Is that attached to the building?
It is.
Is it serve as an entrance or exit?
It is attached where the entrance was, yeah.
Then I think it has to be inspected by UDC.
Okay,
I'm pretty sure that in our current ordinance, that that's a requirement. If it serves, if it's attached and it serves as an entrance or exit to a building, to a dwelling, it has to be inspected by UDC.
okay. The owner wasn't there when Max and I were there, but we left a message with, I think, family members to give us a call.
So the town still wants a land use permit, even though it has to be inspected by UDC.
I believe I'm not sure if we can approve it without it being inspected.
No, but you could approve land use permit contingent on inspection by UDC, right?
I think so. I think that would be the proper procedure.
But it's more than just two steps. It's like the size of this table type desk or deck. excuse me?
Yeah, more or less.
Oh, okay, well, yeah, there's a fee required, yeah, that's to meet setbacks. I was just envisioning, it's more than just two steps going into the doors.
No, it's this.
Yeah.
It's one step, probably.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, we will take care of that. And then the last two things on the very back page of that one, is I like to measure just from the shoreline, and it's 2,200 feet, so it's nothing there. And then the bottom one is just a depiction of any wetlands that are in the general area, and there's none. So, I just wanted to go through all of the aspects of it, so. Those are the three that we wanted to report on today, and I'll be working with Kevin and anything else that we get coming in to keep these moving forward as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
so have I got a motion to approve this with contingencies?
I'll approve the land use applications submitted by Margot Wittig. Contingent upon review for uniform dwelling code requirements.
1 second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. New business review McHugh conditional use permit application. Well, last time we talked about having people coming up with a list of yeah. Everybody have their list?
Got some things on my list.
Okay,
One that we discussed, a commercial inspection. Given that people were gonna be in visiting, would want the building to a standard that allowed the public to be in there for essentially what is our commercial purposes. Occupancy tied to applicable or available parking spaces only. On the point of the music, up for discussion, but I understand ambient music and that sort of thing. My twist on that was there would be no amplified music. Like, amplified music would be disruptive, and again, open to discussion, but that was on my list.
anybody else?
Got a few concerns or notations as well, some that mirror David's. I too would like to see the property to be inspected by the town will appoint building inspector if deemed necessary by the inspector. Same thing with parking. We want to make sure sufficient off-street parking provided per the zoning ordinance. And what I can see is two spaces in addition to the residential parking requirements and one space for every 2 employees and no parking on Benjamin Boulevard at any time. The live music also gives me some pause and concern. I can understand having music inside the building, such as stereo or radio, something like that. I'm concerned about the advertising of live musical performances on the premise. I don't think it should be permitted. Another concern would be off-premise directionary signs advertising this business. Obviously, no off-premise directionary signs should be allowed. And per the ordinance, only one on-premise advertising sign, not illuminated, not to 12 square feet in area shall be permitted. The sign shall be in the lot setback, not in the right of way, provided it does not interfere with the passage of vehicles or pedestrians. And last but not least would be no retail or wholesale products may be sold or offered on the site except those products and services that are actually produced on site by the applicant and associated family members. It's limited to being operated as an art studio gallery. I don't know how to handle food and beverages being offered or advertised. I don't think they should be advertised for sale because this is not a restaurant or a bar. And one last thing is get the item of guest artists. Again, this is a home, emphasized home business. It's not located in a commercial zone. You are granted more in a commercial zone than in a W1 low density zone. So those are my concerns and list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If something else, Charlie, about that.
No. Go ahead, sorry.
I agree with some of the issues that were mentioned previously. One that hasn't been mentioned yet, I guess, is the CUP, if it stays with the property or not. And I think we can settle that. I don't think it's a big issue where we can restrict the CUP expire business if the property is sold.
Yeah, just like the yurt, the CUP does not go with the land.
Actually, that's something.
You know, I researched that today. You can't restrict it. But what you can do is put a term on it. The term expires, you stop. And if you set a term 1 year, let's say you set a 1 year term for the conditional use permit, which can be the condition. That's legal. You can set a term. But if in that term, within that term, property was sold, the new owner would be able to have the same use until the end of the term. That's how it works. Okay. So if you set a 1 year term, I mean, that's pretty tight. So the likelihood that someone else would buy it and be able to really think that they could develop something, you know, pretty big out of that, I think is unlikely. As long as you put a term that's short, you know, not 5 years or 10 years, but a year. But you cannot statutorily, the town cannot restrict to personal.
The way I read it, you could.
Well, I looked at it pretty hard this morning. Yeah.
I'll have to revisit that and look again, but. Okay.
At the end of the term, would they have to apply for a new CUP?
Is it renewable? Is it one-off? You know, is it renew, self-renew? I mean, it's how you would draft that.
Okay. Anything else, Jim?
I guess. Our next move, unless other people have things they want to discuss, is if we're going to look at possibly granting this CUP, we have to sit down and look at the language in the actual conditions that we want to put on that CUP.
Yeah, recommend to the town board for approval.
But we have to come up with a list of conditions.
Mhm. Well, the only thing that bothers me is in my mind, he has a lot of parking spaces out there. And everything looks good except the advertised music that's out there. Bringing people in to perform. It was a flute out there. It's kind of background music for people wandering around. But now there's a wine and kind of a reception with music with being brought in, and that concerns me. And I didn't,
Did you hear the flute at your house?
I flunked flute, no. I was last chair, no.
I've got a way to solve the music issue.
Yeah,
3 police reports referencing Town of LaPointe ordinance infraction as grounds for a CUP revocation. Now, the noise ordinance is a town ordinance, chapter 336. And right here, in chapter 336, residential 7 AM to 10 PM, 55 decibels, 10 PM to 7 AM is 45 decibels. The police carry decibel readers with them, so if somebody complains, you know.
I don't think anybody's gonna complain. I just don't.
But the point of my concern with that, sorry to interrupt, is the fact that it's a home business. If
The label on it.
if they were doing the musical stuff themselves, but if you're having guest acts come off the property, it changes the whole dynamic of being a home business, does it not?
In my mind, it does.
I mean, where do you start and stop going forward if you allow that? That's my concern, Paul. Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. I don't know, that's my thought process with the music. But I'm just one person here.
And I believe there has not been an issue yet
No.
on the number of years that they've been doing this, that there's been any complaints at all. There was no complaints or issues from the neighbors, doing this.
And as far as the commercial building code, you know, I think we would have to put it in there that inspection has to happen within a certain period of time. 6 months might be reasonable.
Sure. Yep.
The label on it.
Has anyone reached out to James Price on this issue at all? I mean, from the zoning office end of things.
Well, it's my understanding that Steve has made an application that hasn't been submitted yet, but
Okay, just a question.
is that correct, Steve?
Yeah, that's correct. I was working with Max on figuring out what needed to be filled out. Because it's an existing building, the application that was provided was for new construction. So as soon as we figure out what is needed, what paperwork and what amount, we plan on submitting that right away. And as far as noise, if I may proceed, 55 decibels, we're doing acoustic music. We had people walk up on Monday that thought that they asked us, I thought you have music. And we said, yeah, it's going on. You could barely hear it outside of the building. So it's not amplified. It's to the point where it goes outside of the space.
So maybe about the same level as a squirrel cracking an acorn.
Close. And we're not selling food and we're not selling beverages. We're giving away a glass of wine or a bottle of water. So this is not an effort for us selling or getting into the food or beverage business. And we never will be.
Thanks, Steve. Well, Charlie, how many days do we have to deal with this? Do we have to act on this tonight?
You're on the clock for 30 days after the public hearing on the 11th, so
Okay,
you gotta, yeah,
so we need to,
you're probably gonna, yeah, you'd want to meet sometime next.
well,
week.
is that because we're just recommending to the town board. So is that 30 days to the town board or is that 30
I
days?
think once you're done with the public hearing, the applicant has 30 days for us to make a recommendation to the town board. And then I think after they receive it, they have 30. I think we're on the clock from the 11th to the 11th of this month.
I mean, so basically we should make a decision tonight.
Unless we have a meeting next week.
I'm happy to make a decision tonight with, you know, a few provisions that we've talked about.
You can also limit the number of musical events you have. Make it for a month. Which is made, because.
I think right now they're just on Monday night.
Right.
I mean, I honestly think three police reports referencing infractions of town ordinances, you know, should cover it.
But isn't that a nature of, that's not a preventative condition. We're trying to limit or shape activity rather than react to outcomes, I think, in these conditions.
Well, the other thing, Dave, is on a conditional use permit, when you're looking at establishing conditions, you have to show substantial evidence, which is, and that goes on to say facts and information other than merely personal preferences or speculation. So it's got to be based on actual facts, or otherwise we get into a lot of trouble.
Right, sure.
I think it was Act 67, the outline.
Yeah. Act 67 basically says if an applicant meets or agrees to meet all the conditions that we list,
Right,
we have to grant the
gotcha, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
in my mind, people are here for peaceable enjoyment and noise conflicts with that. So, you know, in every CUP, you know, to put something in there about, you know, 3 police reports referencing, you know, town ordinance infractions just kind of covers that.
And yet another thing is on the issue of selling products that are produced on site. Under home business in our current ordinance, it says no retail or wholesale products may be sold on the site except those produced and services that are actually produced on the site. So that's pretty much already covered.
Yes.
But if he's advertising for wine and cheese tasting and he says, I'm giving it away.
We've never advertised cheese. And
Well, my point is, if you're advertising something, is that part of a home business unless the wine is made on site? I'm getting back to this home business idea.
It says for sale.
Fine. I'm not gonna argue the point. The point though is, Jim, is that a home business is designed for stuff that is produced on site or created on site. And his application is for an art studio and gallery. It's not for a music venue. I'm just trying to dot the i's, cross the t's. I've been through a lot of these. And I know how it's manipulated.
Well, I'm comfortable with all of it, except what bothers me is the advertising of music. That's, I know the reason is to bring people out to see his artwork in the gallery and stuff, to help them enjoy themselves while out there, but it seems like it's pushing the envelope for me to include that, the music stuff. That's just my thought. Or why don't you decide on a vote or whatever?
Well, we're gonna need a motion. We actually wanna work on this a little bit and write down provisions.
I think we have to, if we're gonna try and see, I mean, we need to. have the
Actually
condition.
list the conditions.
Running out of time, aren't we?
Well, for this meeting, we're not, but I think we should work on this and put it to rest.
But you've been waiting to approve.
Well, one condition, I guess, that we all agree on is that it needs to be inspected.
Yes. Is 6 months okay for that?
I would hope so.
I don't have a problem with it. No.
Next,
Well, we all agreed on sufficient off-street parking per the zoning ordinance. I'd like to see no parking on Benjamin Boulevard personally, but that's up for discussion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the home business has to contain parking within its property lines, rather than a public throughway.
Paul, your idea about the noise ordinance, I think that's put in there too.
well, and I guess I understand Sue Ellen and I understand Charlie. I mean, as far as the music goes, I think the noise thing should be put in there, whether there's music or no music.
It's not.
But-
for everything.
Personally, I don't want to, split hairs on a little art studio with somebody with a flute or a guitar. I personally don't have any a problem with that.
I think regarding the music, the advertising of live music begins to blur the implied venue for me a little bit. I'd be open to hearing what everybody else has to say, but we begin to veer into that's a featured event versus again, back to the home base, the art. And I understand it's ambience and experience makes a better experience out there, but
And if he has a radio going, a stereo, that's background
Yeah, that's
music
ambient.
inside, yeah, I have no issue with that. And again, that's where Paul's idea, if it's too loud, well, yeah, then that comes into play with the noise ordinance, which is on the books already.
right.
Again, my concern is having musical acts show up, whether it's
Well,
one person with
I-
a flute or,
I kind of
10-piece band.
did a blanket thing, just referencing, on a LaPointe ordinance infraction. I mean, the noise ordinance is one tiny little thing, of all the ordinances.
Well, I still feel that people that live out here on the island have, it's not the easiest place to make a living. And if somebody has a home business or whatever, and they're going to have people come in and perform music to draw in customers, I don't see a problem with that. As long as we have somebody that's gonna make sure it doesn't get too loud and people aren't gonna complain. I just think it's part of living out here, operating a business. You have to do different things to bring in the customers. And
I mean,
one way of doing it.
the commercial zone is, primarily residential. And, I think we need to think outside the box for.
Well, the applicant had a business in the commercial zone and now he's in a low-density residential district, so that's his choice.
I absolutely agree with that. It's a little odd, but it is what it is.
Well, it is in W1, which is 20-acre parcel. And the neighbors, it's a few neighbors out there really, but.
Yeah, they-
A mile,
They showed up and they were all in favor.
right?
Nobody said anything negative.
No,
Shirley, I can understand your concern about a business using different ways to bring in customers. But I think that's kind of a necessity out here. It's hard enough to have a business, a home business, and not be able to attract people to come and look at your products.
Yeah, I understand that, Jim, but at the same time, the home business was designed so that someone could have a small business at home. It's not a commercial zone. I'm not gonna waste my breath continually beating that horse to death, but it's not a commercial zone out there. And if he's an art studio, God bless him, I wish him well, but that's what it is. That's what his application was for. And to present it as anything other than that, I think is misleading, and I'm against any live music. The more we talk here, I'm just getting more and more against it. Sorry to say. Because I don't think there's any way to police it, quite honestly, to be honest with you. If you allow it, who's gonna police it?
well, the only other thing he can do to bring customers out is word of mouth or signage, and we're tough on signage. We've dealt with that before, so.
If he doesn't advertise anything, he can basically, have his friends and neighbors over and do anything he wants, and he wouldn't even need the CUP.
Yeah, but that's why we're here. It's not to look the other way, guys.
Carol, I'm still having a hard time understanding you're against music.
Guys, it's a home business. Have you read what a home business is and what it's not? Tell me, I mean, I don't want to get upset, but I just don't get it. What do you think a home business is? Is it the same as a business downtown La Pointe? Because it's not.
Well, we have such a small commercial.
I know, I've heard that, and I've been through the comprehensive plan. And this is allowing him to do something out of his house. But why are we constantly morphing it into more of a commercial enterprise? You also have to remember, after we make a recommendation, the town board can just throw everything we just talked about into the trash and start over. I hope they don't, but I've seen that too, Jim, and I know you have, so,
But the town board can.
yeah.
We're all aware
What
of
they
that.
do.
That's part of our,
But I think I've said my piece. I'm not, if someone else wants to talk, that's fine. But that's my concern. It's clear, right?
not to be,
Okay, sorry. I don't know what else I can do.
I mean, I see your point, but as it applies to the CUP, I don't see the value of it.
That's your opinion. I disagree.
Well, I'm in Charlie's camp on that, and Steve's my friend, and I want him to do well. He has very few avenues to pursue to bring people out there. So I don't know what the situation, I'm just not comfortable with advertised music out there. The purpose is to bring people out to enjoy his artwork. But it doesn't seem like what the home business was supposed to be. Supposed to be a cottage industry out of your home. I don't know. I don't want to be difficult, although I am.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, I am really hung up as a live music piece of this. I think it's, I'll give you I'll just give you an example of how things can escalate. And my worry is that we are not putting in measures to keep, to sort of shape the outcomes that we want to see given the conditional use permit. So we live pretty close to Bud Nelson's old hospitality room, and it was never loud music that really was disruptive. It was the 40 motorcycles that showed up that was disruptive around in our neighborhood. That's just an example. I would say, even if we had acoustic, here, I'll give you a really extreme example. Let's say we've got someone playing that room, so it's an advertised live music, acoustic only, one guitar, but that guitar player happens, this is gonna be a stretch, so give me some leeway here. But that guitar player happens to be renowned, right? Or a pretty exciting draw. Now we've got something that's shifting into a music venue a little bit more. And I'm not saying they are or they're not. And I appreciate the ambient music sort of enhancing the experience out there. And in and of itself, I'm not against that. To your point, a stereo or something that brings some ambient sound that can be pleasant. But I'm worried about the escalation of what live music out there could become, and having a set of reasonable controls. Paul, you brought them up, of noise, violation that can actually be a after the fact remedy. But I think our focus here is to say, shape the conditions that we want to see, so the business can right out of the gate or the home business right out of the gate be acceptable in the neighborhood. So that's my hang up with the music venue, is that it's hard to, apply what's the right act to have out there. Is it someone playing a flute or a guitar, or is it, something, James Taylor showing up? Not saying that that's the case here, but that's the scale that I'm trying to look at in terms of how that would be a draw.
I've got 3 to 5, no music, no live music, so let's, it's the way it is, and let's move on. What's next on our list here?
Well, I have to take issue with what Dave just said, because once again, I have to go back to what it says about substantial evidence, facts, and information other than merely personal preferences or speculation. And a lot of this, what we're talking about, is speculation. And we're supposed to use the facts. Facts are, he's been doing this for 3 years. There's been no problem. People that try and make a living out here on the island have a hard time. They need to do what they can to bring in customers. Another fact. So if we get away from speculation and what might happen, I think we have to go back and look at what's happening now and has happened.
Jim, I appreciate that perspective, but I think when you have a live music act that's not yourself, in that it becomes a venue. And that's my perspective. It's not, I think we're turning it into something else by having live music there. And that's not if I may, I'm not speculating on that. I'm just saying, hey, if we're going to allow music, then in my mind, it becomes a venue.
Tend to agree. The purpose is for people to see his artwork, which is there's a lot of artwork. It's a pleasant building. And that's kind of veering away from the focus being his artwork. I realize he wants to, as I said before, I think the proper thing was signage, but we've kind of blown that one out. I don't know what everybody wants to do on that. It has to get inspected, so let's start with that.
Well, the problem with the inspection, and I came up with a time limit on it, because if we require the inspection first, then we're gonna not be recommending the CUP. You would have to make application again after, the building was inspected and we had a commercial certification. So we can get around that by recommending this tonight and put a 6-month limit, to have that commercial certification. And if we don't get it in 6 months, then, we have the right to revoke the CUP.
And I don't know how James Price handles after the fact commercial permits. I mean, Do you or anyone else? I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea. So that's why I said if deemed necessary by the inspector.
So
Maybe he says it's not needed. I don't know.
He did an after the fact inspection that I've been told on the candle shop, because that was a vintage house when it was purchased, and now it's a commercial candle enterprise. So
True.
they can be done.
Okay. Fair enough.
So I'm still, I'm seeing here that the live music is off the table. It's unfortunate, but you know, we need to move on and come up with, you know, the rest of the provisions that were on people's list. And I think,
Okay, moving on then, are we in agreement about no off-premise directionary signs advertising the business? I mean, he's allowed to have his sign at the business, correct?
yep,
Yeah, so
yeah, well, that's our current ordinance.
that's fine. I just want to make sure it's in there. 'Cause
Now, if our ordinance changes, then, you know, then it would be different, but it's how our current ordinance reads. Anything else?
You want to read back the list?
I've got the inspection 6 months, off-street parking, noise ordinance, and no directionary signs, and it looks like, Max has been taking more detailed notes, so.
There was the issue about you got the signage language, okay. I think, yeah, there's five, the noise, the parking, commercial inspection, the no live music, and the no retail products sold. Dave, did you have something that doesn't fit in there, those five?
Nope. No, I think
I don't know that we need to put in no retail products other than produce on the site. That's in the ordinance already in our home business.
Okay, which ordinance?
Pardon?
Which ordinance can I reference?
Yeah, section 6.4
Right, so we would just, well, I guess it's implied condition is that compliance with all the existing ordinances, so that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
The existing ordinance of the state, but does that mean if the ordinance changes in a year, this will automatically change?
Yeah, they could just put in there to the current ordinance. Because I don't think you want to have somebody comply with an ordinance that's out of date.
As long as we're clear.
the assumption of the compliance to the ordinance supersede everything else. I mean, it has to do that. That's not what's up to debate here in terms of our conditions. It changes, it's outside of our purview anyway.
Something changes at the state or county level.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like it's the state statutes that with the commercial inspection, I mean, change of use, commercial inspection, that's a state statute.
Correct.
Just one thing to circle back on, it hasn't been brought up, but, and maybe, I don't know how, I've never seen one, how they're drafted, but do you want to put a term? You know, like it's a 1-year term, you want that in the, as a condition?
Well, in my mind, it certainly would have to be a lot longer than 1 year.
I just wanted to bring that back up. We got on all these subjects, but if you're worried about past this conditional use passing on to someone else.
Yeah, I
why don't we
mean,
make the term more.
I'm just one guy, but in my mind, it wouldn't bother me if it went with the land, because if somebody else wants to, step into Steve's footprint, I mean, as long as they adhere to the terms of the CUP, who cares?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with eliminating that whole thing about a time limit or whatever. I mean, I don't know why we need a time limit.
Yeah, I just remember they did it on the yurt and they wouldn't,
They did that with the homeowner only, right? Or That's what it was 3-4 years ago. Out there, right? It stays with them, but once they sell it,
Right, but now Max is telling me or us, that that's not, how it should have been done.
correct.
you know. Well, okay, anybody with a motion to get this show on the road here?
Motion to recommend to the town board.
Yeah.
I'll recommend to the town board approval of the Stephen and Mary McHugh conditional use permit with the following conditions. Can I have those, please? Inspection by the UDC inspection within 6 months, correct?
Yeah, commercial UDC inspection.
Commercial UDC inspection.
Those are just my scratch notes.
That's fine. Sufficient off-street parking provided per zoning ordinance and no parking on Benjamin Boulevard. No live musical performances.
Noise ordinance.
Adherence to the Town of Point noise ordinance,
Well, all ordinances.
all ordinances. What else did we have? I think that's it. And no directionary signage. But again, that to Jim's point, that's already in the ordinance. You want to include it as doubling up, so be it. Again, the town board can change. That everything that everyone discussed.
Yeah.
Llewellyn seconds, any discussion?
So you're saying there's no parking allowed on Benjamin Boulevard in this?
That was my motion.
Correct.
He's got enough parking out there, I think.
If he has enough parking off street, it shouldn't be a problem, you know.
Got a motion and a second. Discussing.
Not comfortable with no parking on Benjamin Boulevard. I think if he's does a show where he's just showing new art and people come out and somebody wants to park on the Benjamin Boulevard to go in and look at his art. I don't have a problem with that.
I can park on Benjamin Boulevard and get out of my vehicle and walk up and down. I can walk to the town park. Just because we list that as a condition, it doesn't mean people, aren't gonna just park on Benjamin Boulevard.
I know, but that would be a reason to revoke his CUP because
Right,
they violated one of the conditions. And I don't know that everybody that would come out to an art studio would pull into the driveway to park. They don't know what they're gonna get into in there, how packed it is possibly.
Well, let's avoid that statement then. No parking on Benjamin.
you okay with that?
Not really, but if everyone else feels strongly about it, remove it. Remember, again, it's not a commercial enterprise. I don't know what the town, we're talking about ordinances. I don't know what the town ordinance is about parking alongside that road anyways. Maybe there's no parking out there already in the book, so. If you want to remove it, fine, but I can amend my motion to remove that.
Okay. So that's a amendment to remove that?
So moved.
Okay.
Sure.
Second discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, future agenda items, or no, excuse me, review technical memorandum number 3. Carla, maybe you can refresh my memory on technical memorandum.
You get that refreshed version that I had submitted to Ed about 2 months ago with some changes. If not, I can send it to Rich and
Okay,
in a PDF form or something, and he can distribute it to everyone,
yeah,
either electronically or hard copy.
Yeah, I reviewed that, which you changed.
I missed a few pages towards the end, but
Was there any big changes in it or?
I don't think so.
I didn't
Jim.
find them.
It was mostly housekeeping stuff as far as
Like,
changing the language from the, zoning and planning to town plan commission. That was a lot of it, but there was a few other small, like incarcerating people for violating stuff. I don't think they have the power to do that, so. The heat's off.
thanks. Moving on, future agenda items.
No, that we put that technical memorandum number 3 back on, but we'll.
Yeah, and the same old with the LUP.
Yes. Also, I'd like to see chapter 205, get revisited, see
Oh, excellent.
where we're going with that.
What's that?
Pardon?
What's chapter 2?
Chapter 205 is building construction.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about it at the meeting.
I want to put signage back on.
Signs,
For
Signage, yeah.
enforcement thereof,
Enforcement thereof.
fine with me. And I don't know if everyone got a copy of the draft letter I had for the next Gazette, but if we could put that on for discussion.
Yeah.
Or in the meantime, if you want to give me your feedback, I encourage it, welcome it.
I think it's a great idea. I'm gonna read it again. In the spirit of not chasing down things after the fact, I think the notice we can give and educating people on what they need to do is really helpful. So. On board. I think another future agenda item, maybe I can work with Rich on this one, or and maybe Katie, of just doing a summary review of the rental permits that have are all due by June 15th, I think, so.
In the past, some of these renewals have snuck in after the 15th and they didn't have to advance to a brand new application. So it would, in my mind, be a good idea that if the applications were late, that maybe our ordinance was enforced in having to submit a new application.
So,
Yeah, we're working on rules for good reason. They are.
Charlie, have you got time after the meeting to go over that letter that you're gonna want to put in this?
Yeah, you have a copy?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah, it's fun.
right.
I got it too.
At least you didn't highlight the whole thing. Appreciate that.
And we can always add stuff to the future agenda items. So here, I've got extended public comment. Anybody with any thoughts? Yes.
Me from 3560 Big Bay Road. I've had several applications over the 20 years we've had a place up here. And each time there's a form that is on the website or copied here that we fill out. Sometimes they're one page, sometimes they're 5 or 6. Then there's a fee associated with it. You go through a process like this, and all of mine have been for planning committee meetings, so that's my experience. It isn't with me or when there's a finding, I have never received any sort of formalization to say, here's the decision. I've never heard it said it was rejected, it's approved, it's conditional, none. I went through a very similar process. I had a variance for shoreline down in Minnesota that we dealt with the DNR, and it was exactly the same format. Fill out the form, pay a fee, aerial surveys, get a survey done. So there's some involvement and some commitment on my part. Committed, went to about 4 meetings over a period of a couple months. They finally approved it. The next day I get a hard copy, it's called Finding Facts. And it specifically stated, here's what you asked for, here's what you get, and here's the instructions on how you get it appended to your legal description, so it's correct. When I went through the special exception application here, started in August last year. And at that special meeting a week or 10 days ago, you folks formalized it. But there's still no recognition that I can go back to say, here's what it is, and I want to apply for a building permit. So what I'm asking for is, if you request an applicant, any of the people coming before you, to fill out a form, I would ask you to adopt a form letter even that says, here's the plans. So that there's something that a person has that recognizes that you've even been here. Because I was told I have to go back to the meeting minutes of previous meetings to find what the results were. And all it said was, file was discussed and filed. And that was it. So I'm just asking for some sort of recognition, not necessarily for us, but virtually everybody that comes in here, that somehow they get acknowledged that there was a discussion and here's what plan.
Confirmation of the decision.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be getting, should get something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah,
makes sense to me.
you too.
Being a resident of Minnesota and now a resident of Wisconsin for 7 years, things are a little different here than Minnesota.
Well, I think being on the island is part of that as well. And
Yeah.
that's why we're here. We love that.
It'd be more efficient that way.
And I know in 92, when I was audited by the IRS, they didn't tell me why, they just sent me a bill. Yeah, Paul.
Two things. Max, you know, do something to Jim about limit on CUPs, time limits. I always thought you couldn't have limit on the ownership of the CUP, you can't go with property stays with that owner. But then the last zoning administrator told me to change that, and you can put that limit on there, that a CUP only is with that property, doesn't go with the property. I even said, prove it to me, give me a part of a state statute saying that. If you got something that contradicts that, if something's changed in my view, I'd sure like to see a copy of it, because I want to put it in my BOA book. I know a lot of changes all the time, but it just seemed like you can and you can't, if you can and you can't, so whatever's most current, I appreciate it. And the other thing I have is more of a rhetorical question. I was just curious, is this a zoning board or economic development?
Thank you, Paul.
Well, was it better here or in Minnesota?
Next scheduled meeting,
August 6th.
August 6th,
Mhm.
4:30.
Mhm. Everybody okay with 4:30?
Good time?
Everybody's asking me, why is it 4:30? Okay, so it's 4:30.
4:30.
Yeah, it's cool. Inside joke.
And just a reminder, we have a public hearing on August 27th. Max, I looked into when we have to get the zoning ordinance to the public.
Yeah.
There's no requirement at all, nothing at all. But at least.
Ooh.
In advance.
Trial by surprise.
Thanks, Jim.
Should we meet more often going into that public hearing, like?
I think so. I think that the different sections have all come before the TPC and they've approved the drafts. So.
So you'll be presenting, but
You do all the talking.
you've been working on it longer than any of us, though.
Paul's been there.
You carry the brunt of it.
But we can talk about it or not.
Adjournment?
Yep, and it's 5:45.
Oh, this meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
You name
Thank you.
it, kid.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Rich.
Put the pen.
Thank you.
Good first meeting.
Yeah,
Good work on.
Thanks.
it's a gold standard right there in terms of setbacks.
Change anything, man. That's
Yeah.
really
I appreciate it.
very thorough.
George Jeans.
Yes, Rick,
Can I see the